In the past year, we celebrated our 10th year here at our lab on the Portland waterfront. And when you reach a 10-year milestone, you look backwards to think about our accomplishments, but more important, it's been a time of looking forward to think about what do we do in the next 10 years. We live on an ocean planet, and we have a lot of work to do. When I look out over to the next decade, and for that matter the century, I see three themes emerging for our work here at GMRI. The first is, how do we adapt to a changing ocean? A second big theme for GMRI is, how do we cultivate a scientifically literate public? And the third is, how do we nurture resilient coastal communities that can adapt and prosper in the face of change? When we think about adapting to a warming ocean, there are two opportunities for GMRI. The first is to do research to understand changes that are happening here in the region. The second, and perhaps the most important, is to develop forecasting tools so that we can assist fishing businesses and other marine concerns to anticipate changes in the ocean and take advantage of them.
Each of our departments, research, community, and education, had significant accomplishments and made major impacts on improving the ecological and economic health of the Gulf of Maine. Highlights of the research team this past year included the Sea Bass Project, which is all about monitoring the ecosystem of Casco Bay over 10 years. In addition, our research team is contributing a lot of knowledge and data about the Gulf of Maine through presentations at conferences and publications. Graham Sherwood did some major research on closed areas for fishing, which was cited in major hearings that the New England Fisheries Management Council conducted in this past year that resulted in some changes in where vessels could fish. Our scientists are really providing key information about the Gulf of Maine and becoming resources and thought leaders for marine science and critical fisheries issues in the Gulf of Maine.
GMRI has made a huge commitment to science literacy. Our children, our grandchildren have a huge stake in the future of the oceans. And our commitment here at GMRI is to break down the barriers of geography, of poverty, of politics, to make sure that kids in the region have an opportunity to compete in the 21st century.
This past year in our education department also brought new leadership. With the retirement of Alan Leishnes, who had been our longtime leader, we hired Lee Peak, our new Chief Education Officer. Lee has amazing energy, incredible vision. She brings a national network and tremendous national experience. We continue to be really committed to universal access to our education programs for all students in the state of Maine. And we do that in part through Lab Venture, bringing kids to the lab. But we also have a couple of programs, including Vital Signs, that is available to kids throughout the state through the Laptop Initiative.
The Gulf of Maine is defined by an extraordinary rim of communities that are independent, that are intimately connected with the ocean. During the next decade, we'll be focused on how do we nurture resilience in the communities that surround the Gulf of Maine. How do we steward and increase our wild fish stocks? How do we grow aquaculture substantially in order to take advantage of the cold, clean water we have here? How do we pursue opportunities to generate energy from the ocean? And what are the new products that we might harvest from the ocean?
This past year, our Sustainable Seafood Program made huge headway in its goal to increase demand for Gulf of Maine responsibly harvested seafood. We ended up in a partnership with Sodexo, one of the country's largest food service companies. What this partnership means is that these institutional organizations, universities, colleges, school systems, hospitals, will be buying Gulf of Maine seafood in a way that they didn't before, having a really positive impact on Maine's coastal economy.
I'm excited that during the 21st century, the Gulf of Maine will prove to be a leader in defining what is an ocean economy. How do we take advantage of the extraordinary resources in the ocean and steward them as well? GMRI's role in that will be to build knowledge, to forecast changes, to provide new ways of educating people about the ocean, and to nurture the precious community that we have here in the Gulf of Maine. We'll do that work locally, we'll do that work nationally, and we'll do that work internationally. And the lessons we learn here will create opportunities for us elsewhere in the country, and for that matter, around the world.